What's going on, big brother? Can you hear me clearly today?
I can hear you clearly tonight. I'm ready to roll. About time you got it together, man. You've been doing this for about 20 years now. You're just not getting it together.
Trying to get a little sound check, but I'm glad that you feeling good today. I seen you did a show yesterday as well with brother Kevin, so I just got to give you credit. How you feeling today?
Oh, I'm ready to go because of the subject matter. When we talk about Black history and we kind of putting our theme together with growing up versus growing old and how much it cost our ancestors to grow up and just some of the points that we can get from them. I think this is going to be a really, really lively broadcast. And I just can't wait before we start putting images and also pointers on the screen so that people can tune in. But I want to say to everyone, we thank you for tuning into this broadcast. This broadcast can be seen every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. And I believe Chad's got a great announcement to make later on in the broadcast. It's going to really be a huge announcement as far as our broadcast. So we'll give you that in about maybe 10 minutes or so. But other than that, Chaz, I'm ready to roll, man.
All right, let's get to it then. Let's go ahead and start it off. This is growth tip. Chronic lateness and procrastination signal irresponsibility. And we all have that where every now and then we get lazy. We don't do things the way we should. But if this is a constant pattern where every time you're looking down, you're procrastinating, you always turning an alarm clock off, you're never on time, that shows that you are irresponsible because 9 times out of 10, you're late for work, you're late to these appointments, you're missing deadlines, you're not doing the things you're supposed to do. So I would agree that chronic lateness is a part of procrastination. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's a part of immaturity. And tonight's broadcast is about Black history growing up versus growing old. And so we're trying to share with people that we don't only need to grow up, we also need to grow old and mature as we become adults, because a lot of us are just childish. And that's one of the tips we want to give to everyone. We can't always be late with everything. And some of us have a pattern of doing that. And we don't even try to check it or help ourselves. And we know that we shouldn't be irresponsible. But once again, if you want to grow up, you can't be chronically late all the time and irresponsible.
Yeah, and the thing is, like a lot of people, I know when you get in these cities like in Ohio and Wisconsin where snow, I get that. Where all that snow, you can't get out of your driveway. But here's the thing. Set your alarm clock at least if you know it's going to be that bad, an hour and 30 minutes ahead to beat the traffic and to beat the snow. But don't set your alarm clock, 10 minutes till, and then you rushing, you forgetting your charger, you forgetting your keys. That's a recipe for disaster. So I would suggest set that alarm clock an hour and an hour and a half early to get to your next destination.
That's true.
Number 12, purpose. Living with intention instead of drifting through life. Yeah, you have to have a purpose where you're not just floating through life. You're not just taking gambles, taking chances, just hoping for the best. Set up a plan, have something in place, and follow it step by step. But to just live life and just, whatever goes day by day, that's a recipe for disaster. And I know you have something on that as well.
Yeah, because when you look at it, when you're an adult, you should live with intention. Because we've already been children, we've already been adolescents. And so now that we're older, we should have some type of intention to live with instead of just, drifting through life with no purpose, just doing whatever comes our way. That's a sign of a child. That's childishness. That's not being responsible. And so that's what this broadcast is about. And we're going to harp on it because basically we're trying to get all of us, you and myself included, to grow up, because we're too old to be acting the way we act, Chaz. And I know a lot of people that's going to comment, they must agree with that, because all of us need to just take it to another level as adults.
Yeah, and the comments are loading in. I'm going to get to them in a second, but I want to add to that, brother. And I'm not taking up for our youth, but this is where our youth get into trouble. You don't have no purpose. You have no guidance. You have nobody in the household with you. So once again, let me be clear. I'm not condoning what they do when they get in the gangs, get in the shootouts. That is terrible. But this is a recipe for disaster. This is going to happen like we have on the screen when you don't have a purpose or an intention in life. these things are liable to happen to a 17 or 18-year-old, nothing to do, bored, no guidance. These kind of things are going to happen.
And I want to take that on another level too, Chaz, because I know what you're talking about. But when we talk about people growing up, youth, we, our young people, that's a part of life when they have no purpose and they're trying to find themselves and they just get caught up in different things. But I'm talking about us adults. This is for adults to grow up. So
Okay.
the youth, they have a past, if you ask me, but
Okay.
it's us adults who live like youth, who are doing the very things that you said, and we shouldn't be. And that's why I think we should really look at us adults. This is for adults only. We're the ones who need to grow up. The youth are in the process of growing up. So
Right.
we shouldn't be acting like them.
Okay. Well said. Now let me go ahead and be get to our people who've commented here. We've got Sister Marie. She fires in here. She says, Hotel Brothers. We appreciate her for logging in. We got Sister Barbara. She fires away. She says, good evening. We appreciate her. And we got Tiffany Ray. She says, peace and blessings. We appreciate her for logging in. We thank you all who logged in today as we get on to our next point here. Let's see here. Here we go. Growth tip. Adults don't just exist, they build, contribute, and lead. I'll let you take that as I take a sip real quick.
And this is so pertinent. This is so perfect. Adults, we don't just exist. We build. We should be building. We should be building each other up. We should
Right.
be building our businesses. We should be building our minds. We should be building our health. We should be contributing to society. We should be leading society. We shouldn't be looking to the youth as to be our leaders. We should not be looking to other people to be our leaders. We should be doing that ourselves. And that's what I'm trying to get to. We need to grow up as adults, and most of us know that is true. But again, we're not leading, we're not existing, we're just here. And that's the sad thing about trying to get grown people to grow up, because we're just too immature.
Yeah, and I want to stress that last part, brother. Lead. Lead meaning be a leader. You have someone in the household that may be a niece, a nephew, or a child. They should see you leading by example, meaning being a good role model, setting the example, and not doing foolish things. Now, we all make mistakes here, don't get me wrong, but they shouldn't see you continuing the same pattern over and over. And especially like I keep hitting home about with the police, when people constantly getting put over by police and getting arrested and stuff like that. At some point, brother, that's got to stop. So as a leader, it doesn't matter the age. I'm talking about from the ages of 20 on up. We should be leading our youth, and especially in our household. Okay, let me go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, now this one is going to dive into today's topic. As you see on the bottom, Black History Growing Up versus Growing Old, Part 4. Now, this is on the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, here's a picture that we got that I got loaded up here. Whoops. Can you guys see that one clearly?
It's not on the screen. It's not on the screen. It's just you and I on the screen, Chaz.
Okay. What
There it
about
is. Yeah, that's it now.
Okay, yeah. So look at all our brothers and sisters. This was a terrible time. So for the people who don't know, this is around 1863 when President Abraham Lincoln wanted to free the slaves, and it was so much going on at the time. There was war, churches, a lot of things that weren't privileged as they are today, and our people were fighting for survival, helping each other out. It was a terrible, terrible time to be around back then, but our brothers and sisters fought through that. And this picture right here says 1,000 words, and I know you got to take on that as well.
Yeah, it says they grew up when it cost them everything. See, I don't think we understand the severity of what we're talking about. We're celebrating Black History Month.
Yeah.
We're acknowledging Black History Month. But when we look at our ancestors, they grew up. Now, there may have been some of them that were childish for the most part, but
Right.
as a whole, they had to grow up. And in growing up, they gave everything. They gave everything for us. And that's why I think that we adults, we should be a lot further down the road, but we should look to them for examples and then build up on that, because as it says, they grew up when it cost them everything. Some of their families were split, some of them were hung, some of them were murdered, some of them were raped, some of them were beaten, some of them were sold, but yet they still had to grow up. And we're not experiencing all that today, but
Right.
yet we don't want to grow up, many of us.
Well said. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next point here. This is number one. It says they built families in a world that tried to break them. In today's society, this is so bad to where it seems like it's the opposite, to where the families are being torn apart. It is so chaotic. And back then, it was kind of pretty much the same thing where they tried to tear these families apart. But these brothers and sisters stood together and they said, you know what? We got a lot going against us. We not making that much money. There's a lot of obstacles, but they tried to keep that family unit together. And that's what we need to keep on today's society, brother, is the family unit, because it's so easily torn apart nowadays.
And that's why we have to talk about this, because the families back then, many of them, they went beyond, they went above and beyond. They went searching for the people in their families that were sold. They wanted to get their last names back that they had before they were sold into slavery. They built families in a world that tried to break them. That's a part of growing up. That's a part of being an adult. Is building your family, not tearing your family down, not being messy in your family. And so this is why I'm saying that we all need to continue to grow up as we get older, because a lot of us are immature, and this is a way to grow up. Build your family in a world that's continuously trying to break us down as well.
Absolutely. Now, here's the GOAT tip about that one. It says they didn't run from responsibility. I'm sorry, they didn't run from responsibility. They ran toward it. And that's a lot of us, myself included. You know, sometimes we have responsibilities. We get nervous. We shy away from it. We're intimidated by it. But these people said there are a lot of responsibilities, as we're going to get to a little bit later. Building churches, building schools, building nursing homes, all these things that really they didn't have access to. And they actually, like I said, they actually did a good job as far as running toward the responsibility instead of shying away from it, staying at home, ran on social media all day. They actually did a good job at going to it. I know
They did an excellent job when it comes to responsibility, because a lot of them didn't have any choice. They had to do what was necessary to help their families and their loved ones. And today, when we think about us as adults, we shuck our responsibility, many of us. And I know a lot of people, we like broadcasts and we like podcasts that says things that make us feel good. And I think we have to challenge one another in love, of course, but we have to challenge each other that we have to grow up, because the more we grow up, the better this world is going to be, because a lot of us are just old kids. And that's one of the things that we have to look at, and that is, don't run from our responsibility. Some of us have children and we're not taking care of our children. I'm not talking about only financially, but we're not calling them. We're not doing what we should do. We're not spending time with them. We're not calling them on the phone. We're not nursing those who are younger than us. See, this is what I'm saying. This is what an adult would do. No one should have to make us do things like that.
Well said. And especially like you said, brother, with these children, you got to, like you said, if you were man or woman enough to create and have these kids on earth, we should be able to take care of them, even if it's not from a money standpoint, but even if it's from just taking them out to the park, you know, doing things with them, because that really sets a good impression on these kids at a young age. We got a new comment here. Sister Barbara fires in here. She says, because our ancestors had to grow up, what has happened to us, certainly we as people have no clue. And if we do, why aren't we not doing anything to keep the fire burning? Well, the reason why the fire isn't burning is because a lot of us are too complacent. We're comfortable. We got these cell phones. We got these jobs that we love. And a lot of this is what's keeping us complacent. That's why the fire is burnt out, because we're too comfortable, basically, in a nutshell. What do you have on her comment?
And some of us have a mindset that has been tampered with since we were little children. And the system in which we live in has basically brainwashed us. And it teaches us that family is not important. It teaches us that being an adult is not important. It teaches us to stay childish, to stay in a child's place, to act like children, not to be serious. And that's why we're having these problems, because that is definitely a point that we need to talk about. But once again, we're talking about growing up, because that's the problem with most of us as adults. We're grown, but we act like children.
Well said. That was a good comment. We appreciate that sister's comment. They work without guarantees is the next one. Sharecropping was unfair. It was brutal, and it was often a trap, but they still labored to survive and provide. And I'm looking at my notes here. Give me 1 second. This is also what I found out, that there was a lot of war going on, measured under the president's executive order. It also aimed to cripple the Confederacy label laws and black enlistment. So yeah, when you don't have guarantees and stuff like that, I would kind of think that it kind of puts everything up at risk. People don't really know what to expect. But like I said, for someone to work without guarantees, that's kind of like, would you compare that to today with working and not sure if you're going to get paid or not? Or is that a bad illustration?
Well, no, that's fine, but I was going to add to it because what I wanted to say was when I talk about work in this context by us being adults, everything is not about money. Now, I'm not talking about your livelihood. That's foolish and frivolous for me to say that. But I'm talking about in our families. Some work doesn't it doesn't revolve around getting paid. In other words, when we spend quality time with our people, that doesn't mean that we're going to always have money. Now, they didn't get paid because they were in fields and all of that, but I'm talking about today, a grown person know that a lot of the work that we do is not going to always be financial and monetarily because we need each other to know that sometimes I need to help you and not charge you.
Right.
Sometimes I need to help others, and that's a sign of being an adult, as opposed to always wanting some money. That's
Right.
childish when everything we do is centered around money.
Yep, and sometimes, like you just mentioned, brother, sometimes you gotta be free and not charge them, because with this economy now, a lot of people don't have it. But I just want to elaborate a little bit on this picture. I mean, look at this field. Look at all of that field that they have to cover. Now, I'm sure at the end of the day, these brothers and sisters' backs were sore, their shoulders and stuff were in pain, elbows in pain. I just couldn't even imagine the kind of pain and torture. And I don't think that they had, ibuprofen and stuff like we do now. They probably had something similar to that. But my point is, brother, I know these brothers and sisters had to be sore when they were in that field. That's
And
terrible.
Yeah, and I think that also helped them grow in a sense that an adult is going to work. Now, under those conditions, we're talking about something totally different. But I'm talking about the ideal of them working. Many of us today, we do not like to work. And I don't mean physically at a job. I'm talking about within our households. We
Okay.
don't want to build each other up. We want to tear each other down. Sisters want to talk about other sisters. Brothers want to talk about other brothers. People on social media going back and forth when our enemy is looking at this and just laughing because we don't want to join forces
Yeah.
and do what's positive to help us. And this is why we're in the condition that we're in, because we have to work even when we don't get paid to help build up a people, because that's what adults do.
Well said. Now I'm going to elaborate on that real quick before we move on. Like you just mentioned, brother, a lot of us don't see the bigger enemy. The bigger enemy is not always who we see on the internet. It's these people who sit back in these big meetings and they have these fancy suits and they make these decisions. That's the ones who we should be beefing with. That's the ones who we shouldn't be going at. And it's not so much always the black man and the black woman. It's them that's creating these problems. But we as individuals sometimes can't see that. And we're always, fighting and bickering amongst each other. And I wish that some people start to wake up and see that, hopefully. Okay, as we move on to the next one, it says, growth tip. Adulthood showed up even when the system was rigged. Yeah, because it's easy for us to sit back and say, oh, woe is me. I can't do much and everything is doom and gloom. But no, these people still showed up. They fought back. They did what they had to do, even when, as we see here, when the system was stacked against them.
And that's what makes Black history very crucial. Black history is exclusive because it shows us that even though the system was rigged then and it's rigged now, but yet they still acted like adults. That's what we're trying to get to. They still showed adulthood. The system is rigged today. And
Yeah.
a lot of us don't act like adults. We act like little kids. We act like little children. And I know sometimes we don't like to hear that as adults because we think we know everything. We think we're grown because we have a house, we have an apartment, or we have a vehicle and all of that. So we think that we have arrived. But when you look at our lives, a lot of us are very immature in how we think. And so we have to show up and be adults. Even though we know the system is rigged, we still have to show ourselves as an adult.
Well said. We got a couple of new comments that just came in here. Let me put them on the screen here. Sister Mashana fires in here. She says, hello, brothers. We appreciate her. Sister Barbara fires in here again. She says, teach, big brother. So I guess she likes what we're putting out here. And Aunt Nuji's in the building. She says, peace and blessings, fam. We appreciate her as well. As we go ahead and move on to the next tip. Give me 1 second. Number 3, they educated themselves at any cost. The men, women, and some of the elders learned how to read by candlelight after 12-hour work days. Now, I did some research on the 12-hour candlelight, and basically what that was for some kind of inspiration. It stood for a sign of hope as well. So when they read these things, instead of them, like I said, being all sad and depressed, this is something for that they look hopeful for. This is something that gave them inspiration, and that's what that's a good tip. I know you have something on that as well.
Yeah, because when we look at adulthood, our ancestors, they weren't able to read. It was against the law to read, and if you got caught reading, you got caught with a book, they would either hang you or sell you or beat you or do things to you. So what I'm trying to say is, as an adult today, we don't want to educate ourselves, many of us. We haven't picked up a book about our ancestors to save. It's been a long time to save our
Wow.
lives. We are some big children, and I'm saying that we have to educate ourselves. You know, this whole Black History ideal, Black History Month, that should give us encouragement. But unfortunately, Chaz, many of us, we're not interested in education. We're interested in entertainment. We
Yeah.
just want to be entertained, you see. And
Mhm.
that's what we're getting at now is Black history is about growing up. And a part of growing up is to educate ourselves. And that's one of the issues that we face is that many of us, we don't want to be educated. We want everything given to us. And a lot of the things we get on social media, they're not true.
Yeah.
They've been fabricated. But
Yeah.
once again, an adult is going to educate themselves so they can educate their children. But our ancestors, they couldn't, they didn't, but they did everything they could to learn. And that's why I look up to them because they showed us what an adult looks like.
Yep, and I found this picture on Google here, and I'm just putting my own 2 cents here. But like we mentioned earlier, our elders weren't allowed to read. So this sister looked like it's probably late at night. She's crept and found a book or a magazine, something she's trying to find out how to read while everybody's asleep, while everybody's not looking, trying to educate herself. And she's taking a big risk, like we mentioned, because if she gets caught and somebody sees this, you already know what's going to happen. She's probably going to be whipped very bad, beaten very bad, but she took a lot of courage to go out and get this newspaper, whatever it is that she's reading, to try to further her education. We got another comment in here. Give me 1 second to load that up on the screen. It says by Sister Barbara, she fires in here and says, how long will we be marching and singing we shall overcome, and actually put our feet to the fire in order to make it happen? What's your take on that?
Well, see, that was one of the issues I was talking to my brother Kevin yesterday about, and that is this. You know, singing "We Shall Overcome" is one thing, but actually doing something to overcome. That's what adulthood is all about. And just because a person doesn't know these things, we do know that we're being oppressed. We do know that it's going to take courage. We do know that our children are being educated in a system that's miseducating them. We do know that right now, financially, many of us are struggling. We do know that a lot of us have psychological problems. We do know that many of us have alcoholic and drug problems. We do know that a lot of us have housing problems. We have raising children problems. So what we're saying is, how long will we be marching and singing "We Shall Overcome"? My question is, when are we going to do something about overcoming? Because that's a good point. In other words, she's being facetious. We still singing the same songs, but we're not doing anything about it. And to me, that's not adulthood when you just keep saying the same thing over and over. That's childishness.
Yeah, and I agree with this, sister. I think a lot of us, we see this on social media. We see it on the news where people are marching in the streets, with the Dr. King t-shirts, and that's all good. But it seems like we're confident and we're complacent with that. This is all we want to do. We have to actually, like she said, put our feet to the fire and actually make something happen. Because all this marching, like I said, don't get me wrong, that's good, but it's not going to help us. We have to try another strategy, because this is what they want us to do, just march and hope that something happens. No, we have to put more force into this as well. But good comment by the sister. We appreciate her as always. Let me go ahead and go to the next point here. Okay, it says growth tip. Oops, I'm sorry. We go to the other one. Grown people invest in knowledge even when it's dangerous. Now, that's kind of what I'm still getting at with this sister on the screen. This is very dangerous. You know, we take this for granted to now. We can go out to the library, we can read, we got books galore, we can do all this, but I don't think people comprehend how serious and severe this was. If you get caught with anything with literature, trying to find yourself reading something, you know what's going to happen. And it's just a terrible thing to say, but this is what happened back then. But I'm glad the sister is reading, and I know you have something on that as well.
Well, grown people invest in knowledge even when it's dangerous. I'm talking about today. Many of us who are grown, we invest in knowledge, and a lot of people don't like it. So it's dangerous because
Right,
they talk about you. They don't want you to get ahead financially. They try to bring us down, many of us that look like us. And so that is still true today. When you grow up, when you're grown, you're going to invest in knowledge because that's going to help you. I've
right.
never seen a group of people who just shun knowledge the way many of us do, not all of us, but the way many of us shun knowledge. It's just, it's an enigma to me. It's weird.
Mm.
It's weird that we as grown people, we don't invest in knowledge. We don't want to get together and have courses and classes and talk about, that which is going to help us. We just want to sit around, listen to music, have fun, shake a leg, shake a behind, and just, this stuff has got to stop. But once again, we're not setting a good example for our children. And then when they get older, they're not going to grow up because they're going to repeat what they saw.
Well said. As we go ahead, we got another comment in here. Then we go into the next point. Sister Danielle Marquis, she fires in here. Hey, how you doing, Sister Danielle? She says segregation was the era when Black Americans flourished because our resources were not being integrated with the European invaders. I'll let you take a shot at that. And I'll
She
come
she
back.
she hit that nail right on the top of the head because segregation was something that really happened, and it helped us because we had to depend on each other. And now, because we're looking to other people to solve our problems, we've given away everything. We have nothing because we've given our children over to the educational system. We've given our finances to other people. And so these invaders, as she said, this is problematic. And this is why many of us won't grow up, because we can't grow up, because
Mhm.
we don't know how to grow up. But when you study segregation, as the sister says, when you study segregation and you see what happened during segregation, you will be able to say, let's go back to those principles where we stuck together, where we became adults and we did things that we had to do. And that's why we made it. And I just don't know. This was one of the greatest comments in the history of our show because she hit it on the head. And that's what it's all about. You're going to have to grow up in spite of our situation, but we should look back at segregation to see how we flourished when we had our own.
And she's got one more comment we're going to read here. She also fires back in. She says, we need to invest in our own political system. We spent $1.6 trillion with the European. And brother, me and you have had these conversations as well, even with sports. Everything was good when the African American man was doing his own thing. But when we integrated with these Europeans, which don't get me wrong, we have nothing against Europeans. We love our white brothers and sisters. We're not we're not against them. But the point is here, when we start integrating with them, that's when all the chaos and everything started happening. And like she says here, we need to invest in our own political system instead of relying on them. What's your take on that?
Yeah, and it has stunted our political arena. It has stunted us because we're still looking for other people to solve our problems.
Mhm.
We're not looking to each other to solve our problems, you see. And so we give all our money to other people and then we brag about it. That's not grown, that's
Right,
childishness. We
right.
give our money to other people and then we brag and say we have 1.6 trillion dollars spending power. That's foolish. So
Yeah.
you're saying you're going to give that to someone else instead of make that grow to help feed us, to help clothe us, to help us. And this is why we have to look at Black history to see that our ancestors didn't have much, but what they had, they used it. That's why a lot of them were so much more growner than we are. And I've said this yesterday and I'll say it again. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Just because our ancestors couldn't read, many of them, just because they couldn't write, they still were very sagacious intellectually. They used their minds, but see, we have the reading, we
Right.
have the intellect, but yet we use it against our own growth. And this is why these kinds of discussions won't get a lot of comments because most of us are not acting like adults. We're acting like children. And instead of taking these pointers and saying, you know what, I'm going to start spending with my people. I'm going to start putting things on social media that's going to encourage us. I'm going to start challenging my family to grow up. These are the conversations that we should have. Chaz, I want to say this to you too, because right now, I know you have an announcement. So all you who are watching this broadcast, Chaz is going to make, this is an astonishing announcement. And please listen well because we're going to do something big. And Chaz, take it away and tell them what we're about to do.
Okay, we want to let you guys know here that here on Adults Only, it's expanding to a brand new broadcast called Adults Only, where real conversations with Big Brother and I. We will be launching our official YouTube channel on Wednesday, February 11th at 6 o'clock p.m. This Wednesday, February 4th, like we're on now, you can still catch us here. But starting February 11th, you'll be able to catch us live on YouTube as well. You don't have to subscribe. We want you guys to so we get more viewers, but subscribing will help us grow. Add to this channel, please. Search up Adults Only, Real Conversations on YouTube, and you'll see here Wednesday, February 11th at 6 o'clock Standard Time. We really, really appreciate all of you guys, and from the bottoms of our heart, we really, really do appreciate you. So that was a
Yeah, Chess,
comment.
that's some good news, man. So all he's saying is he's saying that next Wednesday, now we're going to be up and running, hopefully. Next Wednesday, go to YouTube
Right.
and put in the search link, put in the search address, adults only real conversations. And you're going to see us and we're going to get more followers because we need to get our message out to more people because more people need to hear this because families are struggling now and we're practical guys. You know,
Right.
we're just telling you tips that can help us all and all of us are in this together. So hopefully we're going to get more viewers, more subscribers, and we're going to be able to share this message with many more people that are going to be commenting. So we just want you to know that we're excited about our new broadcast called Adults Only Real Conversations. You got to put that real conversations in as well.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you for letting me say that, brother. As we go ahead and move on to the next point here, it's number 4. They built institutions before comfort, which were churches, schools, mutual aid societies, and businesses came before luxury. And then I'm also reading here, let me get my little lighting in here. It says, they built institutions before comfort to secure survival, independence, and dignity. These institutions were very, very crucial. So, for example, we like to sit back and, and there's nothing wrong with going to the mall, splurging, getting some shoes and things like that. But these people said that can wait, that can go on the back burner. What we need here is, like we said, churches and schools, because we cannot rely on this system to keep helping us get by. So, we're going to do this by our own. And that's well said for them to actually, like I said, to build these institutions before their comfort. I know you
Yeah,
have
and yeah, Chaz, when you look at it, the institutions that they built, especially the churches and the schools, the churches back in the day, they were about fighting against oppression. I
right.
mean, that's where you could go to talk about the system and you can get things done and you could do things that's going to help bring your people forward. But many churches today, not all of them,
Uh
many
oh.
churches don't want to talk about oppression. They don't want to talk about racism. They're comfortable with this. And this is why we're still little children. We don't want to confront the institutions that we have allowed to manipulate us. You talk about the school system. We know our children are being miseducated. We complain every week about how our kids aren't being taught, but every year we keep sending them back to the very same institution. So you see, we have problems of growing up because we keep doing the same thing that's not going to give us the benefit that we need. So, yes, they built institutions before comfort. And like I said, the church back then is nothing like the church today. It's nothing like that. And the schools back then, their little schools they had, they're nothing like the schools are today. And so we have to look at that's how you grow up is you begin to build institutions. We have no banks, we have no credit unions, we have no supermarkets, we have no hospitals. So this is why we have to grow up. We have to build these institutions before comfort.
Yeah, and I want to take a couple pot shots since you've been getting some shots in here. I want to take a couple pot shots at the modern day institutions. And don't get me wrong, when someone passes away, I feel sorry for that family who they just lost someone. But all they want to do is bring Al Sharpton from the NAACP, him and Ben Crump. These are not our friends. These dudes are sellouts. And I hope people start to see that. And I hate to say it because a lot of people look up to Al Sharpton. But I just despise when I see him on TV because I know he's a sellout and people see him and start clapping. You know, I got to get off of this. And we got some more comments unless you got something to say about
No,
that.
Chaz, let's keep going, man. Let's keep going.
Okay. Let's see here. Sister Danielle fires in here. She has another one. She says, we need to invest in our own media, political leaders, education institutions, healthcare systems and providers. Most importantly, co-op farmers to control the collective's food supply. I would agree with that as well, especially with the food supply, because a lot of us are elders. They're getting sick. Some of it is from this food. They're poisoning. And we need to create our own food that's healthier because going to these stores, don't get me wrong, we have to buy food to eat, but we can't trust these stores to give us clean food, clean water, shampoo, and lotion because every time you look around, you go to the doctor, you think you're doing everything well, but you get a bad report. Well, if you're following everything by the book, how are you still getting a bad report? No, it's because they're slipping this stuff in the food. And that will cut down on a lot of that. And like she said, we need our own education institutions to actually teach our black sisters and black brothers what they need to be taught instead of these, European people. But I know you got something on that as well.
Yeah, and I think what's missing here is the comment is fantastic, but what's missing here is the unity among us. Until we get this and I don't mean every one of us African Americans are going to have we're going to have unity. I know that's not going to be, but until the majority of us at least come together and realize that this is a war we are in.
Yes.
And we are going to have to lock arms, regardless of how we feel about each other and how we think about each other. And we're going to have to unify and pool our resources together. That's where it starts. Other than that, these are pipe dreams, but you have to start somewhere. So once again, you said enough about the comment, and I think she's spot on. But this is how you grow up. It's about growing up. And when you grow up, you invest in your media. When you grow up, you have your own political leaders. When we grow up, we have our own educational institutions. When we grow up, we have our own healthcare systems. When we grow up, we have our own providers. And when we grow up, we have our own farmers feeding us. And when we grow up, we are able to take control of the collective food supply. And that's what's missing now. But once again, this broadcast tonight is called Black History, Growing Up versus Growing Old, because many of us have grown old, but we just haven't grown up.
We got a couple more comments, brother, and then I'll get back to the point. She also says, thank you, Kings, for your platform. I would be tuning in and sharing. We appreciate that. Sister Barbara fires in here. She says, congrats. And then Sister Danielle says, faith-based initiatives ruined the church, Bush's administration.
Yeah, because they gave money to people instead of trying to help people, and the people that are in leadership positions took the money and ran with it and didn't give a damn about the people. So now everybody's trying to get this money instead of really helping the people. So she's right about that. Once again, that's a sign of immaturity. Because an adult person, a grown person, will look at that and say, is this going to help my people truly? And when we see it's not going to help our people, then we say, I don't want to have anything to do with it. But unfortunately, many of us sellouts, as you call, neo-Negroes, we run to these things, man. And that's what happens.
And I'll read a couple of her the comments and we get back to the broadcast as usual. She says Al was a Fed informant. I'm pretty sure he was. And she said that no, they aren't our friends. Yeah, she's talking about the rant I went on about how these elites and these people create these foods, and Al and all these people, they're not our friends. But we appreciate the sister for logging in. You're more than welcome to keep commenting. And as we go ahead to the new post here, let me see here. It says growth tip. Adulthood is choosing structure before pleasure. And that's, like I said, I even get caught up at this at times. There's things that I need to do that I should be doing, but it's easier to say, I'll lay back and get on YouTube. I'll lay back and get on Netflix. I'll lay back and watch the ball game. I'll lay back and, get on social media. That's easy to do. But when you have structure of things, to me, when I look at structure, it doesn't always have to be a building per se, but something that needs to be done that you need to quit procrastinating about it getting done immediately. That's adulthood.
Let me tell you what, let me tell you about this tip here, which is true. Adulthood is choosing structure before pleasure. But unfortunately, many of our children, Chaz, they never see structure in our lives. They never see us sitting down having an intelligent conversation. They never see us talking about issues that we face every day. They never see us looking at just ways to become business minded. They never see us having those kind of conversations. They see us on social media. They see us arguing with each other. They see us using vulgarity. They see us drinking. They see us fussing. They see us fighting. And so when they grow up, we think that they're going to have structure. No, we're the ones, Chaz. I'm going back to this, why we call this broadcast adults only. Yes, it's suited for children, but we call it adults only because we're having real conversations that adults should be having. But instead of adults having this conversation, we're hiding behind these cell phones,
Yep.
knowing that we're sick, we're sad, and we're going to have to make a change if we're going to ever be able to be fruitful like our ancestors were in the situation that they found themselves in.
Let me ask you a quick question, brother, because I do this sometimes. But why do you think the ancestors back then, what made them so bold? And I hate to say this, and I've said this before, it seems like they were more bolder than this generation now. What was it that they did that this generation isn't doing or they're refusing to do?
Well, I think a lot of it it's a whole lot of reasons. But when I think about it, the reason they grew up before we do is because they were pretty much forced to. I mean, these people, our ancestors, many of them, they were being hung, they were being beaten, they were being raped, they were being sold. That was a every second situation they were in. But today, we're so laid back because the mentality that we have has been given to us by Eurocentric indoctrination. All throughout school, we were indoctrinated to depend on other people. Now that we're older, we're still depending on other people. So these kind of conversations doesn't set well with us because we're so far removed from trying to do and become adults that these discussions, they mean nothing to us. And so that's why it's hard, because a lot of us, man, we done got caught up in all these fanciful ideas and all of this unsophisticated knowledge. And this is why most of us are weak, because we don't want to struggle, we don't know how to struggle, and we're thinking that we've arrived, which we have a long way to go.
Okay, well said. Thank you for that. Number 5, it says they practice collective responsibility. If one family struggled, others help. Food, children, daycare, protection, and teaching were shared. And see, that's one thing that we used to do. And I want to say in my generation back, it seems like in the early 2003, 2004, you needed some sugar, you needed some ketchup, you go next door to your neighbors, they would happily provide it for you. Nowadays, you go over there, you ask for some ketchup or sugar or bread or whatever. They're looking at you funny. Sometimes they may try to poison you. You just don't know. So back then, it shows that, hey, we have trust in this community. Even though what I don't have, you may have it, and you'll proudly give it, and we'll pay you back some kind of way, even if it isn't money. We always are looking out for each other is the point that I'm trying to get at here, where nowadays we're selfish. We have a lot. There's an incident that I'm not going to tell the name here. I had a relative. She went and knocked on my cousin's door. I think she needed some sugar or something. But the point is, my cousin yanked the door and just threw the sugar in her hand. And she said, well, I didn't need that much. I didn't need that much. And she just, said, get out of here, basically, and slammed the door anyway. These people back then didn't do that, and they always were looking out for each other. What's your take on that?
Oh, you put it together, Chaz. I can't add to that.
Okay, we got another comment in here. Let me get to it. Sister Danielle fires in here. She says, we the Black Americans are prisoners of war that have become neutralized with the false sense of freedom while being held in captivity by the European occupation. We have to think like prisoners if we want freedom. That is spot on, because here's the thing. We have this false sense of freedom because, like I said, we have these jobs, these homes, and things like that. But this sister's saying, if we want our freedom, we got to fight for it. We got to think differently. We can't sit back and think that they're going to eventually give us our freedom. No, you got to take this thing. And when I say take it, I'm not saying, use violence. But sometimes you got to use drastic measures to get the point across, is what I'm getting at.
I think what has happened to us is when the media has done us a grave disservice. When we look at TV and we see all these African American men and women making all this money, we see these entertainers, we see all these people, bringing in thousands and millions of dollars. And so that's just a small portion of us. And so most of us see that and think that we're all like that. But what they don't realize is that the economy that we're living in now, most of us don't have that. There are
Right.
some that do, but the majority of us are poor, miseducated, undereducated, uneducated, and,
Mm.
and we see that we think that everyone has arrived because we have a false sense of freedom. And so she's right. But the point that I'm making is this: we're going to have to grow up,
Yes.
whether we want to or not. We are going to have to grow up because if we don't grow up, those coming behind us are not going to have any kind of examples to see what we should do. Our ancestors, they laid the blueprint for us. They showed us what to do. But we don't want to pick up the mantle and run with it because we're still thinking about what happened back in the past as it's just a story instead of taking truths from that story and applying it to our lives. And that's where we are right now.
Okay. We appreciate the sister's comment. Now, as the growth tip, adulthood wasn't individual; it was communal. I'll let you take that, and I'll piggyback off
Yeah,
of
and it's just what you just said. Adulthood wasn't individual, it was communal. After the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, in many instances, everything was community oriented. Everyone in the community had a take. Even that's when they said that whole concept of it takes a village to raise a child. When I grew up and when other people grew up, it was a lot of people in our community that looked like us who had the right to do what they needed to do to discipline us. They had the right because they understood that it was about the group. It was about all of us. It wasn't about one person. So
it.
it wasn't just individual. But now we have too many lone strangers, want to be lone rangers. Everybody wants to ride on their horse and ride through town. Look at me, look at me. And that's why we don't have more activities that we should be having put together in the cities we live in. And this is why broadcasts like this aren't popular. And we're not saying this because we want to be popular, but the point that I'm making is all this information we're talking about is how we should be growing up. And who wouldn't want to grow up, Chaz, in
Right.
times like today?
Well said. We should want to grow up, but like you said, and I've said earlier, I think a lot of us are too much in our comfort zones. We got everything pretty much that we wanted, not from a rich and lavish lifestyle, but what I'm talking about is these phones, these cushion jobs, and our kids and our dogs and stuff like that. So now it seems like this is all we think about. As we go ahead and proceed to the next one here, it says number 6, they took political risk. They registered to vote, they ran for office, and spoke publicly, knowing it could cost them their lives. Now, I want to touch on that last one when I talked about costing them their lives. That's a big gamble. Even with the sister that I showed you earlier on the screen here, who was reading this book, that could have costed her life. But same example that I'm getting at here with this point, that they knew that if they voted for certain people, they could be dead, but they didn't care because they said, you know what? I need a change. I need to get this ball going because right now it's not working. And even if it does cost me my life, I'm willing to go down history fighting for something that's worth fighting for. I
And
know
let me say something about this, Chaz, because I want to add some context to this because a lot of people, we get on our high horses and we start talking about politics in a negative light because of what's going on today. But when we say they took political risk as far as growing up, when we got the so-called right to vote, during that time, the system was still corrupt, but
right.
our ancestors wanted to make a change. They really wanted to make a change. And so they had put their lives at risk because if they went to vote, they would first of all tax them and make them take tests. And if they found out they were voting, the KKK would come and take somebody out, hang them, burn a cross on their yard and all of that. So, but today I'm not talking about that because the whole system is so corrupt, white, black, and otherwise. It's a mess. This is why the sister's saying adults, we would get our own politics. We would make our own political leaders so they can look out for the best interests of us, those who look like us. But during that time, you can't knock them for taking risks because some people will say, well, they shouldn't have been voted anyway. The system ain't going to do anything for them. How dare you say that? How dare you think that about them when at that time, this is all they knew. They wanted freedom. They looked at the political system as that was a way out as adults. Today is totally different. So how dare we take what they did back then and put it on us today and make it seem like they were wrong for what they were trying to do when they just come out of 400 years of enslavement.
I see you getting fired away here, brother. You got to take it easy a little bit. Let's get on a lighter note here. We got a couple comments. Sister Danielle said that's right. So I guess she's agreeing with one of your rants here. And then Brother Ray fires in here. He says adulthood is a leadership position. Yeah, you got to be a leader, not necessarily like in the celebrity world or anything like that, but being a leader from the standpoint of doing what's right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say something about that comment Brother Ray have on the screen. He says adulthood is a leadership position. Now, he couldn't have said anything more truer. When you look at your family, the leader in your family should be your mother and your father. I'm talking about the kids that look up to them. If the mother and father is doing what they're supposed to be doing, that's where leadership is. It shouldn't be somebody with a ball in their hand, or somebody with a guitar in their hand, or somebody with a microphone in their hand, or somebody swinging from a chandelier, or somebody in a building squawking at the mouth with a cross around his neck, or somebody singing a song makes you feel good. Leadership, adulthood is where you show and demonstrate the characters, the qualities, the characteristics of what makes you who you are. That's what growing up is all about. And I think that's well said as he came in tonight firing away, because that's what we're talking about now. We have to grow up because most of us are not leaders because we look to other men and women to lead us.
Now, this brother had another comment, and I think this one is more profound because me and you have talked about this off the set here. But this brother, I like this one because I've said this to you as well. He says, voting for the lesser of the two evils will never get the right person in office. And I've said that to you, and me, you've had our disagreements. What's your take on this brother's comment right here?
Well, I go back to the context. I'm talking not about today. We know that today is all whack. It doesn't matter, okay? Because whoever you vote in is going to screw you over because we're not going to vote and then hold them accountable. So I understand that. What I'm talking about is our ancestors showed adulthood back in the day when they were running to these polls trying to make a change because of their situation. And that's the part that makes us adults, is because they realized that they wanted a change. Today, it's so far out of control, man. The Republicans, the Democrats, whomever, the Dixiecrats, the independents, everybody's out for that almighty dollar. They're trying to get over. So he's right. But if you take care of your own household, for the most part, a lot of this is going to run itself. It's going to run its own course if we do what we're supposed to do and quit always looking for someone to do something for us.
Okay, we got a couple more comments, and we'll get back to it. He also says, yet we have the hindsight they did not have.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about now, right? Exactly.
And then the last comment we got from Sister Daniel, she says, we have political power until 1865. Mm-hmm. Okay, we appreciate you guys.
So it's all about how are these comments talking about growing up? That's what I want to know. The comments are great, but we're talking about growing up as African Americans. We're not talking about the past just for the sake of the past. We're talking about what kind of principles can we put on this screen to show and to help and to encourage us to grow up. Because that's what happens a lot of time. We forget what we're talking about, and we're talking about how do we help us as individuals? How do we put comments on the screen that's going to say, this is one of the practical things we can do to help us grow up, because a lot of us act like little children, and that's what the broadcast is about tonight. Growing up versus growing old.
And this one was a growth tip on the previous point. It says growth tip. Adulthood showed up even when the system was rigged. Like I said this earlier, like it's easy for us to throw in the towel now and say, you know what, the system is rigged. There's nothing we can do. We might as well just go home and just let all this stuff play out. But adulthood is them still getting up, doing what they had to do, even when probably 9 times out of 10, they were probably worn down, didn't feel like it. And 9 times out of 10, they're probably mentally stressed out.
Yeah, the challenge I have for myself is this. The system has always been rigged. It wasn't just rigged then. The system has been rigged since we've come over here. But my challenge to all of us is The system is rigged, but what are we going to do? Are we going to act like little children and just complain about the system? Are we going to always find fingers to point at what happened that's not supposed to be? When are we going to say, I'm going to create something that's going to help me, my family, other people, so that we don't always have to continue to complain about something that we can do some of it for ourselves? So the system is going to always be rigged. But am I going to always be a little child in my thinking just because the system is rigged? Or am I going to get up and do something to try to teach these children and to teach my family and to teach my friends that there are some practical tips we can do to help us become more mature?
As we go ahead and move on to the next point here, number 7, they discipline themselves. Despite trauma, they emphasize order, respect, skill building, and accountability. That last one I want to touch on a little bit is accountability. You know, a lot of us in this society, we love to point the fingers at others. We love to always say this other person's fault. But these brothers and sisters back then said, you know what? We don't care what's going on. We're going to control what we can control to the best of our ability. And we're not going to always, like you said, keep pointing the finger at others and always, saying it's other people's fault. And then the other one I want to touch on real quick is they had order, being organized, having things in order, doing things a certain way, instead of, like I said, just waking up and just, praying and hoping whatever happens.
Chaz, I want to say something about that too, because we might have to stop here because I think we only have 4 minutes. I know we got to wrap it up. We can pick it up from this point where we left off at, wherever we leave off at. But this is what I want to say. Sometimes we're like on a teeter-totter, where on one end, when you sit on it, it goes up, the other end goes down. And then when the other person gets more weight, the other end goes up like this. Now, what I'm trying to say that for is to say this. We're going to always point the finger at the system. I've never said that we shouldn't complain about what's happening. Our ancestors complained royally. They didn't just take everything on the chin. What I'm trying to say, and I hope I'm being understood, in order to grow up, we must point the finger, but we must do what we can, man.
Yeah.
We must do what we can. See,
Yeah.
pointing the finger is not going to solve the problem. And that's what our problem is. Most of us go back, we talk about the past, and all that's good because I'm sure that that's true. It happened to us, and I would never knock the past as to when people complain. But what I'm trying to say is, when are we going to get those pioneers? When are we going to get those people who say, all that happened to us, but look what I'm doing now? See, we're not going to get that. And that's why you asked me a question earlier, what's wrong with us? That's one of our biggest problems. We always want to point the finger, and we should, but we never put anything with it. I complained for so many years about the school system. I complained till I was blue in the face about how the school haven't been teaching our children. I started my own school. It's not the biggest school, but I started my own school. So now I can complain about the system, and then you can say, well, what are you doing about it? So I've started a school so I can teach my children what they need to know about academics, about racism, about everything that we complain about. So don't talk to me if you're not going to do something about what we're complaining about.
We got a couple comments before we wrap up today, and they came in. Brother Ray fires back. He says, making your own destination as an adult is a leadership position. And we got Sister Danielle. She says, we can grow up financially supporting grassroots organizations that we can grow. And then I'm going to read one more from Brother Ray. He says, adults have to be the parents. Make better choices for yourself as an adult. I always ask myself, what would I want my son to do my age? That is my compass. And we got our promise. And you guys, we appreciate y'all for firing in here like this. And this is the last one we'll read. Sister Barbara says, we can grow up by applying ourselves to every grain of knowledge from researching our own history and doing the best we possibly can to break bread amongst our people, bringing unity and harmony with each other. That's how we can be better. Yeah, we have to do our own research. We have to educate people as best as we can. And like she said, we have to break bread amongst us people. We have this philosophy, when we make it, it's something for me and my household. No, she's saying share it. Share to others. Share to other people around you, your neighbors, your family. Don't hoard all that stuff for yourself and your household. Do it for others. Let's see here. We got that one. And then Brother Ray said that Dr. Umar Johnson needs our help. He's messing around. But we appreciate all you guys for firing in here as always. We appreciate you, brother, for having me on here. But Tonight was an interesting broadcast. We showed a lot. We showed about how our ancestors were taking gambles with their lives, fighting for freedom, trying to read, figuring out how to beat the system that really had messed them over from the Emancipation Proclamation. We also showed a lot of other images here that just dealt with the pain and the toil that they went through. And us in today's society, we don't want to grow up. We want to stay stagnant, stay in our little hut, stay in our ways, and do whatever pleases us in our little household. And that's pretty much all I have here, brother. I know you have something to say before we log out tonight.
Yeah, I want to say I thank all you for tuning in to this broadcast, but please tell everyone that next Wednesday, which is the 11th of February at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, we're going to launch our YouTube channel. It's going to be called Adults Only, and then it also is going to say Real Conversations. So when you tune in and subscribe to us, just put in the search engine Adults Only Real Conversations, because we want to get this information to a wider audience. So tell your friends, hey, you guys need to really look at two brothers and listen to what they're saying, and you can all chime in, because this is about all of us. It's not about Chaz and I having all the answers, but it's about all of us putting in the comments that we did tonight to say we have a problem with growing up. And so Black History Month should be a month of reflection, but at the same time, it should be a month of accountability. What are we going to do to make our situation not as bad? And so that's the even kill that Chaz and I bring here. So once again, next Wednesday, we should have our own YouTube channel that's called
Yeah.
Adults Only Real Conversations. And we're looking forward to all of you to come, because we want to have you share your information, because it's all about us putting in. So once again, Chaz, appreciate you doing the broadcast tonight
Yeah.
with me. So let's
Yeah.
keep it going. So let's get it going.
Yeah. And like before we leave, Sister Danielle said that this is my first time seeing her here, but she said she's already sharing this. She's going to share this to others. And that's all we ask. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for $1,000 per view. All we're asking is for you guys to share the broadcast, to get the word out. And we hope to see you guys next week. Appreciate you for having me on, big brother.